Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Save up to $1,200 on select Sleep Number 360 smart beds and adjustable bases, plus special financing, only for a limited time. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.
And I know that, all those things are scary and they involve being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and opening yourself up. But that's absolutely what this world needs, is just a few more people willing to really, really go for bat for the issues in a way that's more than just performative and is deeply empathetic and informed around the issues.
Hey folks, doing something a little bit new for this intro. I'm recording outside. You can hear the birds, you can hear the crickets. It's a beautiful day. You might hear a car or two as well. I'm on my back porch. But it's kind of appropriate for this episode because it's all about how do we take care of the planet as athletes, as adventure athletes. Because if you plan on using this planet to have adventures, you should also plan on taking care of it. And that quote is actually from Zo Rom, the person I'm interviewing today. And this episode is from Without Compromise, my other show that I host through Athletic Brewing Company. We released this episode the day after Earth Day to talk about how do we take care of the planet as athletes? What are the most important things we can do? Is it, using metal straws, or is it something more? Is it calling representatives of our states to tell them we support certain bills, certain legislation to help the planet? So she's an editor for Trail Running Magazine and has written for tons and tons of different publications. And I thought it would make a really good episode for our show. But before we get started, sorry, you can probably hear my dog tapping his toes around on the porch. Oh well, we're outside. So before we get started, I wanted to make you aware of today's sponsor is Restoration Depot. If you can't tell, I'm pretty tired right now. I'm doing this pretty early in the morning, and Restoration Depot offers online classes, online get-togethers, meetings around fitness, dancing, even drumming, yoga, tai chi, mindfulness, meditation. You can check in online, go to one of these classes, experience, the group dynamic, the group activity. There's concerts, there's conversations, there's how-to stuff. All around taking care of yourself and being more healthy. And so if that's something you want to check out, I know I enjoy those. I know sometimes I can't always get out, with young kids and demanding job, but I can go online for just a little bit and do something like this. So if you'd like to check it out, go to therestorationdepot.com. Your first class is $5 with the first class special. All right, y'all, here's the episode. Zoe, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mason. So glad to be here.
Folks heard a little bit about you in the official intro that I record after this. Can you tell us, a little bit about where you're coming from today? Where's home for you? Let's start with that.
Yeah, so I'm Zo Rom. I'm the associate editor at Trail Runner Magazine and host and producer of the DNF podcast. I'm currently living in Carbondale, Colorado, which is on the western slope of Colorado, just outside of Aspen. Carbondale is a pretty great spot for, I think I would call it the work hard, play hard crowd. You can get a backcountry ski or an ice climb or a trail run in before work, which is pretty great. But then there's really great places to work too. It has a really great work-life balance. The joke is that we call it affordable Aspen. It has access to a lot of the same great mountains, but not quite the same Ralph Lauren feel as Up Valley in Aspen.
I always felt out of place in Aspen, walking by the Gucci store, looking like a complete dirtbag.
Yeah. Yeah, I always definitely felt like when I lived there, I felt like the dirtiest person in town for sure.
That's hilarious. So where did you grow up? I read in a bunch of places that you're like a Southerner storyteller. You kind of bring that vibe. So where did you grow up, and what kind of things
Yeah.
did you grow up doing?
So I'm originally from northern rural Arkansas, just outside of Fayetteville. I grew up on a small apple orchard, so I always grew up out. I mean, I was not an outdoorsy kid, right? Like I hated sports, was just not about it. I was really into books and playing outside, like climbing in apple trees, hiking with my family. I fished a lot. I camped a lot. Grew up camping. And grew up with just a really strong connection to the outdoors, but not really with sports. So I always grew up as a more, I don't know, more just like a passive enjoyer of the outdoors than a outdoor enthusiast necessarily.
So what got you into it? What got you to where you are today with being not only passionate, but really representing the outdoors?
Yeah. So in college, I actually started studying ecological literature, or we called it eco-poetics. So the study of how you can use literature and writing to connect people with landscapes, ecologies, eco-communities, things like that. And I just became fascinated with this idea of using my favorite thing on earth, writing, to connect people with my other favorite thing, which was just being outside. At the same time, I was working as a backpacking guide. So I would spend my summers outside doing these really long hikes, really helping forge intimate connections with like taking people maybe who didn't have a lot of outdoor experience and just really submerging them in the outdoors and helping them form an intimate bond with a specific landscape. And I wanted to do that same thing through writing. So it was from this tension of like I would, get to embrace my full outdoorsy self during the summers, and then during the school year I was like living this double life as like a wonky literature nerd, and I really wanted to fuse those two things into a career that felt authentic to me and was in line with my values as someone who loves connecting with people, connecting with landscapes, connecting with works of literature. And that inspired me to pursue a career in environmental journalism at the University of Colorado Boulder. So I went and got a master's degree in environmental journalism. And from there, just became really passionate about writing about the intersection of the outdoor industry and the environment.
At that intersection, what have you noticed happening? What has been going on since you really started your career, and what's happening now? What kind of trends are happening, and what have you been writing about?
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most interested in exploring is essentially how we can speak to and message to athletes and outdoor enthusiasts about how their connection with the outdoors enables and empowers them to be activists, not, necessarily always just in the take to the streets context, but, to play outside is to love the outdoors, and to love the outdoors is to take action on account of those, landscapes, ecologies, ecosystems, to take action on behalf of your outdoor community, both the human and the non-human aspects of that. And so I'm really interested in learning how to better leverage people's passion for their sport, whether it's, skiing, climbing, trail running, whatever it is, learning how to take what they love and what connects them to the outdoors and use that and motivate and empower them to pursue change for the better. And I think a lot of times that just, comes down to educating and empowering people. I trust people to make good decisions for themselves and their communities. And I think everyone just needs a little more information to make sure that they're doing that in a way that's both effective and empathetic. So, it's informing people about how their sport, how their, recreation of choice affects, different landscapes, how it affects different, maybe it's how it affects rural communities, maybe how environmental justice comes into play, how economics come into play, and just letting people understand that all of these things are connected and interrelated. And the more they know, the better decisions we can all make to create a more just and sustainable world going forward.
So all of us as athletes, as outdoor athletes specifically, we use this planet. It's our medium of connecting. It's where these life transforming events and experiences happen. Was there a experience for you or something that happened, a story you could share where it was clear that the thing you love to do outdoors was having an effect on the outdoors, having an effect on the environment, and you needed to make sure that it didn't contribute to destroying that outdoors, but actually helped it?
I mean, in terms of learning to recognize my impact, when I worked for a while at an NPR member station in Aspen at Aspen Public Radio, and I participated in a study that examined the effects of hikers and trail runners on elk populations. And I had always kind of bought into this myth that like, oh, hiking, it's not mountain biking. It's not like I'm not on a dirt bike. I'm not on an ATV. I tread lightly. Like, just because it's me on my own 2 feet, I don't have an impact. But in fact, once I dug into the data with these Colorado Parks and Wildlife researchers, any kind of human disturbances, like if it's just me walking with my dog, if it's just me, on the trail in elk terrain during sensitive times of year, that affects elk at a metabolic level. Like it causes them stress. And so either, it'll upset the very young elk, like to the point where they'll be so stressed they won't be able to eat and then they'll die, or it'll stress the mothers to the point where they won't be able to produce milk for their young. So it just really made concrete for me the idea that even though trail running in a lot of ways is a fairly light impact activity, it's not no impact. And the more visible we can make those small impacts, the more, people will just be able to make these more informed and empathetic decisions. And so I'm really interested in talking about the ways in which our industry isn't perfect and the ways in which we could tread more lightly, and just being honest and authentic about, the impacts of our sport. Because again, like it's not riding around in the desert on an ATV, but there is an impact. There's an impact of flying to races. There's an impact of eating a certain way. Like just to be alive is to have an impact, and that's okay. We just need to make better decisions in some arenas, and giving people the information to do that in their own lives is what I'm really passionate about.
I'd love to hear some of those things that we can practically do as outdoor adventurers and athletes, because for our own health, we've got to get out there and do these things, but we don't want to love the outdoors to death.
Exactly. And I think the good news is that I and no one out there is saying that you need to stop trail running. I am a full believer that engaging wholeheartedly in the sport you love will make you a better steward and advocate for our planet. And I think that that's a time, money, and energy really well spent. So I'm all for people getting out there and trail running, on trails, being smart, not in sensitive elk habitat as much as possible. And diving into that article, that article really came from a place of vulnerability and concern over how I can really do my best to live in accordance with my core climate values, and out of a concern for making sure that the time and energy and money that I spend on these things is time, energy, and money well spent, not having an infinite amount of any of those resources. So I really lump the two types of action into two distinctive categories, being individual action and collective action. So diving into the side of individual action, those are going to be things like, just things that you do yourself as an individual. And the four most effective ones borne out, like this is not my opinion or anything, this is borne out in the research, is to to educate and empower women to have fewer children all around the world. The more educational and economic opportunities that you give to women, that lowers birth rates, and that causes less. That's an environmental benefit. Another one is to drive less. Another one is to fly less. Another one is to eat a plant-based diet. And so I wanted to just kind of talk about those things that on the individual level are borne out in the data to be the most effective, because there's a lot of conflicting information out there, particularly for people who are making a good faith attempt to do their best and be good stewards of the environment. But, you always hear these things tossed around, like take shorter showers, use a reusable straw, use a coffee cup, like don't use almond milk, use oat milk. And my philosophy and this is borne out in a lot of the research I've done, is really don't stress about those things. Do your best on the things that you can control and the things that are shown to be effective. And then don't beat yourself up about, occasionally, reaching for the almond milk at Starbucks or whatever, or every so often using a plastic cup. Like, obviously use reusable things where you can, but, in the grand scheme of things, like when you look at where the majority of emissions and waste come from, it's overwhelmingly from industrial processes, and it's not from like me and my straw habit. And this is less borne out in the research and more borne out of my own just experience around these things. But you tend to see bad actors shift the blame from themselves onto individuals around things like taking shorter showers and buying reusable straws or whatever. So, this is like when you see oil and gas companies like BP tweeting out a tool for you to assess your own carbon footprint, which is a patently ridiculous thing to do because, Zoe's carbon footprint is always going to be so small compared to BP's. Like, I could stop existing and emitting carbon tomorrow. That just wouldn't really make a whole lot of difference. However, if BP took even a few small steps to limit their carbon emissions, that would actually change, the future of our climate. So diving into the research, the most effective and beneficial things you can do are hold these larger entities accountable and engage in what is called collective action, which is when you take action against larger systems, larger entities as a collective to hold people to account and build more equitable systems. So these are actions like voting. I can take as many short showers as I want, but if I don't make sure the people who are producing my food are being good stewards of water usage as well, it really doesn't matter. So, stressing a little bit less about habits in my own life, while obviously, yes, making a good faith attempt to, do my best, but trying to channel more energy and resources into making sure that lawmakers and policy and collective action embodies my climate values, which is a hard thing to talk about because as Americans, we really love this idea that as individuals, we are omnipotent and can affect great change, which is true to an extent. But in order for us to really, really fight this big problem that we're up against, we are going to have to come together and dismantle this narrative that we can all just do small things within our own life. And we need to hold politicians and companies to account for the damage that they're doing to our climate and countries. Like, we need to hold everyone to account.
What I do like about that, it's kind of the same principle as when you're saving those little shampoo bottles in a hotel room to save money. And you'll save, what is a shampoo bottle? A couple bucks. You'll save, $10 over the course of your life doing that. Maybe 100 on the very best end, but you can rework some things in your taxes just to be more efficient and save thousands instantly. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, what are these biggest buckets for your action? And it seems like those big four that you talked about have been the most immediate things. And one of the things that I think a lot of people find, coming to terms with is air travel. That can be a tough pill to swallow, but it also seems like you're not necessarily telling people you can no longer do these things, but even cutting back, by 20% is a huge deal. By 50% is an enormous deal. So instead of having 3 kids, have 2 or 1. You still get that. You still get to experience that without cutting it entirely out of your life.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really great point. I think sometimes in our culture, we have this idea that if you can't be perfect, why try? This is something I struggle with in my own life as someone who wants to pursue a career in athletics, which inevitably entails flying to events. So I'm actually working with a race organization right now to start implementing, like, as you sign up for trail races, you get to opt into a carbon offset. There are some race organizations that are starting to do this, and I'm trying to help more and more implement this. I'm trying to implement this at Trail Runner magazine as well, because I want our consumers to know that they're buying a product that, that does what it says it's going to do and means what it says in terms of climate values. But individuals can offset the carbon of their travel as well. I think that's just one, it's not a panacea. It's just one small step in the right direction. But, I think a lot of really imperfect small actions will kind of help cancel out that fear of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not Greta Thunberg. I can't just sail everywhere I want to go. I would never see my family again. And I think that that can help kind of alleviate some of the stress that for me comes up when I work through some of those climate solutions. So carbon offsets are a really great way to do that. And then again, just cut yourself slack. You're just one individual making decisions, and like what you do is not on it in and of itself going to change the world. But the more you can positively influence people around you to just start making more mindful and informed decisions, that's huge. Like definitely don't fly indiscriminately. Don't just like drive around for no reason. Be very mindful about your consumptive habits. And don't make them just be habits, right? Like if if you always fly somewhere, examine why you always fly there. Start asking yourself questions about how, where, and why you can cut back, where you can more fully embody your climate values, and where the areas in your life are where how you're living doesn't quite match up with what you like really say you believe, and then find solutions that can help bridge that gap and encourage others to do the same in a way that is both, that's accessible, but also hold people accountable to that. Like, I think if we just all let each other off the hook and say like, it's hard, it's too hard, don't try, that's not a good place either. I just think that aiming for perfection is a trap, and we should all acknowledge that in the system that we currently live in, you can't be perfect, and trying to be perfect will drive you crazy and make you very ineffective at taking all the really small necessary steps that we need to take.
Great point. Absolutely great point. And it is a perfect or nothing mindset with a lot of this. So you shared a handful of things, those big four with individual action. What would you say the biggest buckets are? I know you mentioned them, but could you summarize it clearly of collective action, what you can do as a person to encourage that collective action or to hold these companies, hold them accountable?
Yeah. So the biggest thing you can do is vote. And this means in every single election that you can vote in, like especially the small local elections that determine who's like on the planning and zoning commission for your city council. That is super, super important. Read your local newspaper and inform yourself about the candidates, because those are going to be the people that are going to be setting land use and zoning policy for your local area. Study up on who, your county commissioners are, because those people can dictate how energy moves around in your community. And that's hugely important as well. Get really familiar with who's running for your state, Senate, and House of Representatives. Know who your politicians are and elect politicians who embody your climate values and who are going to be advocates for our one and only Earth. And I think that's just one of the clearest, easiest examples of collective action. Another one is making sure that you continually engage with those representatives as well and hold them accountable. This could be writing them, calling them, tweeting at them, staying in contact with them and letting them know that you're watching them and making sure that they vote and legislate according to what our planet and what our communities need. And I know that that's like not as sexy, it's way easier to post like a cute photo of your vegan donut or whatever on Instagram. But, just staying in touch with your senator is a much, much more effective way of truly, truly enacting change. And if there aren't politicians in your area that fully embody your climate values, then you should run for office. And there's lots of organizations that can help with that and inspire people, particularly on the local level. But, just become politically active, become politically engaged. And I don't mean, be the most annoying person at every cocktail party. I mean, find what animates you about the issues that are important in your area and inform yourself and others about them in a way that's empathetic and accessible. I think, there's a lot of cynicism around politics and the political process, but it's also, for me, an amazing source of hope, optimism, and engagement when engaged with correctly and with the right mindset and coming from an informed place as well. Other ones are, if you work for a company, you can push your employer to do better in terms of potentially reaching carbon neutrality. I myself am working within my organization to try to offset the carbon cost of all of our magazine subscriptions, because I want to work for a company that doesn't make me feel like I have to like sever my brain and my heart. And I think that that is something we can all do, is just write to our bosses, our employers, find out who else at our places of work is tapped into the issues and wants to engage, right? Just let it be known what your values and priorities are, and find out where what your role is in your organization and how you can kind of help move that conversation forward at your place of work. Maybe it's something small like getting compost, but it could also be a big thing like divesting corporate money from fossil fuel industries. I think that's another individual action with a good bit of efficacy behind it, is making sure that the money in your bank account isn't being used against your own best interest as a citizen of the world. And I know that, all those things are scary, and they involve being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and opening yourself up to, potential rejection or critique and pushback from employers or friends or the political process. But that's absolutely what this world needs, is just a few more people willing to really, really go for bat for the issues in a way that's more than just performative and is deeply empathetic and informed around the issues.
What encouragement could you share of folks that are getting something done, whether you've seen it with companies or some legislation recently? What is giving you hope?
Yeah, I mean, I was just speaking about divestment. That's been a tool in the past that has been critiqued by some as not being very effective. But when you look at what happened around the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in January, so the Alaska, or the government, was auctioning off leases in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and no major bank or drilling company put bids on them like all these dinky little state-run companies did. No one major went and put a bid to get mining leases on this land, because grassroots efforts primarily led by indigenous peoples made it so publicly toxic to come out in favor of mining or of resource extracting on this land, that no major bank would support an effort. No major drilling company wanted to be associated with it. And therefore it was a total failure on the part of the state company auctioning off the land. And so that really shows how effective we can be, both as grassroots actors, but also as people letting financial institutions know that we don't want money going to certain projects. That is a huge win on the part of, again, grassroots efforts largely led by indigenous peoples, and just the divestment movement in general.
Wow. That is really encouraging. That is really, it almost seemed like a marketing ploy, if you do this, you will be seen as the villain, clearly.
Exactly.
So
that's what consumers, just let it be known. If XYZ bank supports a mining company or puts up money for this, or if BP puts a bid on this, you have a social media firestorm coming your way that is going to be a huge headache. It is not worth it. And that's a hugely effective tool.
The power of social media goes beyond pictures of vegan donuts.
Exactly.
Believe it or not.
Definitely
that's incredible.
Yeah, and you guys have an amazing, just legendary trail stewardship program, which it's 2% of your profits goes towards trail stewardship. Is that correct?
Yep, 2% towards trail stewardships and 1% towards Jedi initiatives.
Yeah, and that's amazing, because it's just 3% every day of the year, not just on Earth Day, not just when people are paying attention, but 3% all the time goes towards these causes that you really care about. And I think that that's hugely amazing and impactful. And I would love to see a lot more companies take a page out of y'all's book and, make a budget line for these things. Because you can say that you that you believe in, climate action and that these things matter to you all you want. But if it's not a line of your budget, then I'm not buying into that.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Save up to $1,200 on select Sleep Number 360 Smart Beds and adjustable bases, plus special financing, only for a limited time. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably been hearing a lot about the stock market lately. Millions of people are beginning to invest for the first time ever. And we're realizing that the financial system should be built to work for us. That's why Robinhood is creating real human education resources, truly digestible financial news, and a platform that lets you invest in your own way, on your own terms. The next generation of investors is already here, and it includes you. Robinhood. Investing is risky. Robinhood Financial, LLC.
Absolutely. But it was from day one. It was from seeing that. And is it tough to bake that into the business plan? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's hard to get, people to back it, saying, what, you're going to have that from day one, 3%? That's kind of a lot for a startup, but it's hoping, just like you said, be an example for your community. There's by no means even close to perfect, but it's just when you see folks trying, you want to encourage that attitude, no matter what, healthy direction it's going. So that's good to hear. I know we got to jump into rapid fire here soon. You're just sharing some pretty incredible stuff and some powerful steps to take. Anything else you'd like to share before we move into that?
Yeah, I would just encourage people to know that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be 100% informed on what's going on. We don't need more experts and heroes. We just need everyone to do what they can in their sphere of influence, and just take as many steps as they can very imperfectly forwards. You don't need to, know and understand absolutely everything about the albedo effect or be able to name every single person in the House of Representatives in order to be a really excellent ambassador on these issues. You just need to care even a little bit. And that's really just more of what this cause needs, not, more people necessarily, screaming on social media or, writing 900-word think pieces. It just needs a few more people who are willing to put themselves out there, try new things, and just, move a little bit more in that direction of better rather than striving for being perfect, falling short, and then disengaging.
I'm sure you see that repetition time and time again, wanting to do better, but falling short and then quitting or not trying again.
Oh, totally. Or, inevitably, whenever I write about these issues, someone always responds like, how dare you? You own a car, like you trail run, you're not perfect. And my response is, you're right. I'm very far from perfect. I have a lot of growing to do around these issues. Even as someone that cares a lot and is fairly well informed, there are things that I have an imperfect understanding of and that I fail on repeatedly all the time, but I am trying my best and I'm trying to hold the people with more power than myself to account. And that I think that is a much more productive approach than pointing digital fingers at people who are making a good faith effort to do their best. And I think that, it's impossible to be perfect in the system that we currently live in. It is driven by and entirely by fossil fuels, and just trying to live outside of that. Like if I just totally tuned in, dropped out kind of thing, I wouldn't be able to impart the change that I want to impart than if I just engaged imperfectly in a somewhat broken system, pushing for carbon neutrality at my place of work, pushing for carbon neutrality at trail races. If I just said, screw it, I'm never flying again, I'm going to go meditate on a mountaintop and then sail home to see my family once every 6 years, I wouldn't be able to have meaningful, heartfelt conversations about why I care about these issues. I wouldn't be able to be an ambassador of these issues when I go to trail races. I wouldn't be able to speak to race directors about why they should implement carbon offsets. And I think, making those compromises when they come from a good place and are backed up by action is a good step in the right direction. If the task is just not doable from the moment you start, then it's hard to blame people for not starting.
And the outdoor adventure community is great for this because, we're notoriously folks that look at something and say, yeah, I can do that. And
Exactly.
Other folks can look at it and say, there's no way you can, run up that mountain or across that canyon or do this thing, but you go do it. You're doing the impossible in a lot of ways anyway. So you can do the impossible when it comes to caring for the planet. Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to transition into rapid fire questions. And
Awesome.
You don't need to answer these with 1 word or 2 word answers. It can be a couple sentences. Mm-hmm. But with the first question, I'd love to know, what do you see out there in the world of caring for the planet, of, making Earth Day every day? What is the most encouraging aspect to you?
I think it's just like having that opportunity to experience true, authentic connection with, my like human community and my like bio regional community as well. Like I just feel so at home when I'm outside here in Carbondale, and when I'm with people that I love and care about, and when they're healthy, I'm healthy, and the ecosystem is healthy as well. And I know that sounds very hippy dippy. Like I promise I don't own like any crystals, and like I'm not a patchouli kind of person, but I really believe that like our ability to thrive and be happy is profoundly connected to our planet's ability to do the same.
Well said. What would you say you're most curious about right now outside of trail running?
Yeah, I'm a writer. And so I know this is probably a pretty boring answer. I'm trying to just kind of hone my writing craft a bit more, which just involves a lot of writing, which will likely never see the light of day, but, just kind of trying to push myself a bit creatively. And I'm curious about maybe what new like formats and styles of like what genre is not quite the right word, but what, how I can best represent and play with my voice outside of just journalism.
Do you have a specific achievement that you're most proud of? It can be in your career or not. It can be in your, athletic career, writing career, whatever. Is there an achievement that really sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty proud of being the associate editor at Trail Runner. I really love this job, and I just feel so fortunate to get to be in dialogue with the trail running community around the issues that matter to all of us.
Definitely worth being proud over for sure. Now, is there a hobby that you have that maybe you don't talk about, maybe a hidden talent? I know you write, I know you run. Is there anything else? We know it's not crystals. We know that for sure.
Not a big I read every day. I really, really love reading. I love fiction. I love short stories. I'm currently reading Brant Washington's most recent collection, and it's so amazing. I would highly recommend it. And I love reading. I love fiction. Even as a writer of exclusively nonfiction at this point, I just love how far people can take that craft. And I especially feel like during the pandemic, creative fiction has been an amazing way to stretch my boundaries a bit and like intellectually explore ideas that otherwise I wouldn't be able to.
That's awesome. I don't want to put you right on the spot, but you're a fan of Athletic. You know a lot about our beers. Is there a beer that you really enjoy? That's your favorite that Athletic Brewing makes?
Oh yeah, I like Free Wave. I'm a big IPA fan, and having a bit of a hazy, like it's so hard to find. Because hazy, I mean, for me, in my pre-athletic days, it meant like something really heavy that was just going to make me feel like crap the next day. And being able to have just like a very, traditional hazy IPA without the headache is so amazing. But I'm also a fan of the Run Wild, just an IPA fan. I'm so excited that like, because it used to be like, oh, we got to wait for like an email to get the Free Wave. And I'm so excited that it just gets mailed to me now. It's the little things during the pandemic.
It is the little things that help make it doable. Our motto here at Athletic Brewing is brew without compromise. And this show is all about hearing stories about living without compromise. What does it mean to live without compromise to you?
That's an amazing question. To me, it means to have identified and recognized what my core values are and make sure that I am embodying them to the extent that I'm able in every aspect of life, whether that's running, training, reading, writing, working, every conversation I have with a stranger at the supermarket, just making sure that everything I do is working towards being an authentic embodiment of the things I love, believe, and care about.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes.
And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
Breaking up is hard to do, but when it comes to your wireless carrier, you should have left a while ago. You're over the big three carriers. You deserve better. Xfinity Mobile. Now you can get unlimited with 5G included for just $30 a month on the nation's fastest, most reliable network. So break free from the big three and save with Xfinity Mobile.
Take the savings challenge at xfinitymobile.com/mysavings to see how much you can save when you get Xfinity Mobile and internet together. Reduced speeds at 20 gigabytes per line. Most reliable based on RootMetrics US report. Results vary, not an endorsement.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Save up to $1,200 on select Sleep Number 360 smart beds and adjustable bases, plus special financing, only for a limited time. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.